Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am the Todd I am, and in this episode, we're going to look at the enclosure that I have built for the American Bison and the Pronghorn Antelope. Now, this episode is going to be a little bit different than what I have done before, only because whenever I built this exhibit, and I went to look at my recording file to get it edited, the file was corrupt and it would not open. So the entire recording of the build that I did is completely lost. Um, so very upsetting. I wasn't even certain I was going to get a video out this week, just because I was just so frustrated. Spent lots of time on this habitat. Put a lot of thought, a lot of effort into this to make it look like I wanted to. So nonetheless, there's no recording of the build. However, so what I decided we're going to do is, excuse me, just do a quick overview of what all I have in this, what I've done with it. Clearly, you can see there is a train ride through this exhibit. I built a little train station. There's a little general store, bridge, track going through the tunnel, all that. So what we're going to do real quick, I'm just going to go through really short and kind of just going to go over what I did, the decisions I made, why I made them. And what I have done is with the general store here, I built that after the habitat recording, and so I do have a speed build of that. So I do have a little bit of content to show you today for that. And of course, there are some cinematics at the end. Excuse me. So for starters, my intent for this habitat was to be very similar to what the Midwest of the United States may have looked like when the American bison population was at its peak, when there were millions of bison within a herd. And at that time, the only good transcontinental transportation was by train. And so my thought was, what would it have looked like if I was on a train back in the 1800s going out through the Midwest of the US and came across this plains, the mountains and hills, and all I saw were this giant herd of the American bison. And so I made this into a a habitat that actually housed more than just a bison because a pronghorn antelope would have been seen in the same habitat depending on what part of the US you were in at the same time. So I really wanted to have a combined species habitat. So we have a large herd of the pronghorn antelope as well. And so I really wanted to have a lot of multi-terrain within this one exhibit. So we do have the mountains, obviously, you can kind of see throughout the background. I made this ravine where the animal can still go into because that would have been something that would have been plausible. A little bit of water collected here, small little stream. Um, right back on this side of it, there is small lake with another one off here to the side there. Um, so again, I can't voice my frustration that I had not being able to show you how I terraformed all this, how I made the ravine, this bridge. I am actually pretty darn proud of. Try to make it look as rustic and not very modern as I could, but still be believable for what could have had back in the 1800s or somewhere in that time frame. If they had to cross over some sort of a river or a ravine such as this. And then with my airlocks into my train station. Now, my train station I built again with the same time period in mind that there would not have been a a station that actually went over the train. The train would not have gone into a building at this time. The train would have been outside, and the station itself would have housed where the tickets would be purchased. Probably not have food and drink at that time, but since we are in a zoo, I gotta take care of my guests. So I did add a little bit of food and drink in there with it. Try to make it look fairly rustic. and then getting onto the platform to the train. Um, all that, like I said, would have been in the file that I lost. So what I did decide to do is to make this general store. Now the general store would have been something that would have been very common back at that time frame. Maybe a few little goods outside in little carts, wagons, maybe some small little shelving units, a table perhaps. And then here on the inside, would just, in this instance, just, whoops, sorry about that, just some souvenirs, food, drink, and a bathroom area. So very modern on the inside with the benches, the plants, obviously the ATM, but just more so that my zoo guests could be taken care of, but still have that kind of throwback feel for what they could have experienced back then. Again, I like to be very immersive with my habitats within Creeklore Zoo, and in keeping with the theme of what I have with a lot of my enclosures, this one is absurdly large. But I did that with the intent that the bison and the antelope could breed as much as I wanted to, again, increasing the numbers to make these really large herds of these animals. And I want to make sure they had plenty of space in which to do that so they wouldn't have to worry about getting rid of some of these, selling some of them off, trading some of them off. I wanted to make sure they had more than enough space. Clearly, they will eventually outgrow this space, but I do intend that to be quite some time from now and not have to worry about that for a long time. I wanted to put something else that would have happened. They would have clearly had to navigate through mountainous systems and terrain and hillsides. So they would have had to dig through, blast through mountains for these trains to access to the other side, because the steep incline of some of these mountains, the tracks just wouldn't handle it. The trains wouldn't do that. It's not plausible. It's not very um, possible, really, for these trains to have done that back then. So they would have gone through the mountains. So clearly, I felt that I need to put um, this tunnel through the mountain. It works out really, really well. I love how they are settling in. They're very comfortable. They will drink out of this water. I have found that I don't need to use the water pipe or any water troughs or trays within my habitats. If you put enough water in there, they will naturally use that as if they were out in the wild anyway. So I think that it works out really well, especially for these really extremely large habitats that I like to do with Creeklore. I probably won't do that in future zoos. It's not really conducive to do that for guests to view them closely. My keepers are literally running all over the place, always trying to give the food, make sure the habitats are clean. So I do have a lot more staff than probably needed, but for the sake of making sure that I don't wear my zookeepers out, my staff out, I do have plenty of men there so they can trade off and have plenty of help while they do that. So that in and of itself is the quick overview here of this habitat. Again, mostly frustrated that the file was corrupted. I couldn't share that with you. I really wanted to do that because I'm really proud of how this one turned out. So I do apologize for that. Hopefully it was just a fluke coincidence and just something that will not be repeated in the future. So anyway, I'm going to let you have it at this. The following will be the speed build for this general store. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, make sure you hit that like button and do me a favor and hit that subscribe button as well. That way you will know when I've got future posts that will come out. Plus, it will help me grow this channel. So leave a comment, any suggestions, comments, critiques. I enjoy everything that I get. Nothing is off limits. If you don't like it, that's fine. You can just let me know, hey, this is a terrible build. Here's what you wish you would have done instead. That's fine for that to happen. So anyhow, I will leave you at that. Again, I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching. Everything that you do for me is greatly appreciated. And as always, I will see y'all next time.